Instead, his voice cracked and a lump formed in his throat. This was a mistake. Maybe I should just go home. Already? What about Meredith? Vlad hurried ahead, shrugging as he descended the porch steps. It looked to me like she was in good hands. Henry followed, stopping Vlad with a hand on his shoulder. You've got it all wrong. I was trying to hook you up for the dance. He looked at Vlad. You believe me, don't you? Sure, he believed Henry, but it was hard to ignore the fact that Henry was probably the most crushed-on guy at Bathory Junior High. At times, the wistful sighs from interested girls as they passed in the hall were deafening. Well, you said before that you were only able to read Henry's thoughts after you'd ingested some of his blood. So if you didn't taste this person's blood, how do you suppose you could read his mind? Her tone was even, but careful. Vlad leaned over the book and perused his various notes, theories, and scribbled thoughts on telepathy. No idea, but then it's not like I have an Encyclopedia Vampirica to consult. So far, all I have are theories. Nellie nudged a plate of sticky buns toward him and proceeded to cover her own plate with crisp bacon, scrambled eggs, and toast. Vlad grabbed one of the sweet pastries and dropped it onto his plate, while Nellie refilled his glass with the blood he would need to begin his day. Nellie had never been squeamish when it came to Vlad's diet. She was a registered nurse and went to great lengths to sneak blood from the hospital for him. Nellie chewed a bit of bacon, watching him with great interest. So, what happened at midnight? No clue. We left early. Vlad shrugged. Then, thinking about his overnight guest, he asked, Is it cool if Henry stays another night? His parents aren't going to be back until Monday afternoon. So long as you boys can manage to find your way to school in the morning. As if awakened by the mere mention of his name, Henry came bounding down the stairs and burst into the kitchen with a bad case of bedhead and a happy, well-rested grin. Aunt Nellie slid him an empty plate, finished her bacon, and placed a kiss on Vlad's forehead. See you later, boys. I've got a long shift today. Vlad ran his finger thoughtfully along the lip of his glass. Hey, Nellie, we've got this family tree project in history. I was wondering if you could help me out. She ruffled Henry's hair on her way to the door. Have you checked the attic? I know your parents had some photo albums up there. They'd be more help than I would. Vlad stared after her, dumbfounded. Nellie sighed. Honestly, Vladimir, you've lived here for 3 years and still don't know about the hidden attic? The door to it is a foot from your bed, for goodness sake. I thought vampires were supposed to have ultra-sensitive powers of intuition. Vlad shrugged and picked up another sticky bun. Don't you think if I had powers of intuition, I'd be doing better in math? Nellie groaned. Let's hope you develop that next. With the click of the front door, Vlad and Henry were left alone for the day. They finished breakfast and settled down in front of the television, bouncing back and forth between watching cartoons and saving the world through PlayStation, until morning slipped into the comfort of late afternoon. Henry had already beaten Vlad twice at Race to Armageddon, but on the third round it looked as if Vlad might be making some headway. The prize, of course, was glory and riches, combined with the godlike status of having been the android to defeat the menacing Alien King. But just as Vlad was raising his laser sword to strike the Alien King down, Henry hit the turbo button and interrupted the blow with one of his own. Vlad dropped his controller with a groan. I suck at this game. Yeah, but you can fly. I have to be better at something. Henry dropped his controller on the floor beside Vlad's and reached for his open soda can. The floor in front of the beanbag chairs was a battlefield of open potato chip bags and candy wrappers. Vlad shook his head. I can't fly. Only hover a little. Fly, hover, whatever. It's cool. Plus, if you learn how to turn invisible, just think of the terror you could be in the girls' locker room. Henry wiggled his eyebrows and took another drink. I wonder if you'll be able to turn into animals and stuff when you get older. At first, Vlad thought Henry was kidding, but when he stole a glance at his friend, he noticed that Henry's usually jovial demeanor had turned serious. Vlad shook his head. That's stupid. Now think about it. In all those old stories and legends, vampires can turn into bats and wolves and fog and stuff. Henry shrugged at Vlad and dropped his gaze to the carpeted floor between them. It's possible. Vlad thumbed his controller and tried not to sound too intrigued. It had been something he'd wondered about for some time. I guess, but I'm not 100% vampire anyway. My mom was human, remember? Henry lowered his voice some and watched Vlad with a careful expression. You must miss them a lot. All the time. Vlad held his breath for a second and tried not to give in to the sudden threat of tears that he could feel building up in his eyes. There was never a moment when he wasn't thinking about his father, and the kind sparkle in his eyes, or the tender way his mother would kiss him on the top of his head whenever she walked within a 3-foot radius of him. 3 years without them would have been impossible if it hadn't been for Nellie. It didn't matter that they weren't actually related. Nellie and his mother had been closer than sisters, and that, in Vlad's mind, made Nellie family. It was weird how they died. Henry unplugged his controller and wrapped the cord around it. Yeah, people don't normally just up and burst into flames. Vlad took on a casual tone, but secretly wished Henry would forget the entire ordeal. He picked up his controller and reached for the console's reset button. Let's play again, but this time I get to be the blue android. I'm hungry. Apparently Vlad wasn't the only one with mind-reading abilities. There's fried chicken in the fridge. Henry disappeared into the kitchen and returned a moment later with a plate of chicken in his hands and a drumstick in his mouth. I loved Nellie's chippin'. Vlad wrinkled his nose, suppressing his growing nausea at the smell of cooked flesh. Speaking of Nellie, I'd better work on that family tree. If I get another D in history, she'll kill me. When's it due, anyway? Friday. Henry dropped a clean bone on the plate and looked at Vlad. How much have you done? Vlad raised his eyebrows and smirked. Does writing my name at the top of the page count? I don't think so. Doesn't matter. I haven't done that yet, anyway. It didn't take long to find the hidden door to the attic. Vlad grabbed the flashlight from his dresser and slid in first, with Henry following close behind him. Narrow stairs hugged the wall and curved upward, leading them to the attic room above. At the top, Vlad reached up, hoping a string to a light would be dangling down somewhere nearby. Finding one, he tugged it once and illuminated the room with a soft glow. Henry wrinkled his nose. Dude, what smells like cat pee? You mean besides your breath? Don't make me get the holy water, Vlad. Boxes lined the walls in various towering stacks. Vlad lugged one of the boxes off a stack and placed it on the floor at Henry's feet. He reached for another, and Henry asked, What are we looking for exactly? Photo albums and birth certificates, and if we're lucky, a family tree. Vlad pulled another box down and crouched on the wood floor. He tore the packing tape away from the seam and flipped open the flaps. The top was filled with nothing of interest, tax papers mostly, and the occasional folder of receipts. But toward the bottom, Vlad found several shoeboxes overflowing with family photos. He set them to the side and reached for another box. By the 10th box, they discovered several photo albums, 2 small velvet boxes containing his parents' wedding bands, and a leather-bound book with a strange symbol on the front, held securely in place by thick leather straps and 2 brass locks. Exhausted from the search, Vlad brushed a thin coat of dust from his knees. I guess these will have to do. With a nod, Henry wiped a cobweb from his ear, picked up a stack of photo albums and disappeared into the passageway. Vlad was 2 steps from joining him when he spotted a cylinder poking out of a small box atop one of the stacks. He picked it up and turned it over in his hand. It was small, no more than 6 inches long, smooth, and completely black, except for the strange gold symbol engraved at one end. 3 slanted lines slashed across the bottom, encased in what looked like parentheses. He slid the cylinder into his pocket before turning off the light and making his way down the stairs in the dark. Henry was waiting for him in the bedroom, but before Vlad could show off his curious find, Aunt Nellie called up to them. "I'm home! Who wants hamburgers?" They bolted down the stairs, stomachs growling, and proceeded to help Nellie prepare their evening meal. Once the table was set and the fries had come out of the oven, she placed a bottle labeled ketchup on the table. When Henry reached for it, she stopped him and handed him a different bottle. "Use this one, dear. That one's for Vlad." Vlad proceeded to squirt a healthy glob of blood onto his plate, dipped a fry in it, and bit off the end. His hamburger was raw, and the blood from it had seeped visibly into the bun. He picked it up in both hands, feeling his fangs extend at the scent of it, and tore off a bite.